It's Matt here from Pilot Practice Exams. This is a quick video on FDP or Flight Duty Planning, which you can expect somewhere around about 3 to 4 questions in a CPL law exam on FDP. Now, this video will get you up and running quickly. Don't worry, I'll zoom in a sec. You'll get some more detail. But what you need to understand is at the time of recording this, which is July 2020, you only have to focus on the 2019 version of the CAO 48. You don't need to focus on any of those old ones. So what you need to understand is the top half of the CAO has all your definitions, and it has some terms that some of all these appendices refer to. Now, as you can see here, there's actually 7 appendices, but we're really just going to focus on 6. And as you can see across the top, it's got the heading. So the first one over here is basic limits. And again, I'll zoom in a sec. But multi-pilot operations except flight training, multi-pilot operations with complex operations, except complex operations, any operations, medical transport, aerial work, daylight aerial work, and flight training. Now, the basic one over here, so what it says up here in this very top line is an organisation needs to choose one of these that is most appropriate. And most organisations can fit into, say, their category plus the basic limits one. Some aren't allowed to use the basic limits one. So you need to read through and get that detail. I can't cover the whole thing in this video. So what I've done here in this spreadsheet, and I'll zoom out in a minute, and you'll be able to stop and pause this video wherever you want to see the detail, is basically gone through the CAO, chopped out the headings and just a couple of little details, pasted them in, turned them green if they're fairly similar. Doesn't mean they're identical, but just that they're fairly similar, and turn them red where there's big variations, so you can kind of see the difference between the various appendices and what one covers and what one doesn't. So then what you need to really also be focused on is this Part 3 limits and requirements, and this, I'll blow this up in a sec. So let's go to 100%. You've got this section here, Part 3 and number 10, limits and requirements. So basically what it says is choose at least one appendices in column 2, and when they refer to column 2, they're talking about this table, table 10.1, which is very important. That corresponds to your operation and comply with the limits and requirements in that. So what you do is you choose one of these from these tables that best suits you, and you then go to that appendix and you comply with the rules in that appendix. So this is an overview of the rules within each of those appendixes, and what you'll straight away notice is this basics one is fairly basic. Look, it's pretty light on in detail, missing lots of sections, doesn't have a lot of stuff that's different to all the others. And as you go across, you notice that each one gets a little bit more customized. That's what we're noticing with the red sections here. And in some of them, say, for example, here, the limit on cumulative flight time, you'll notice that that's virtually the same the whole way across the page, okay, except for when you get right over here to Appendix 5A, which is your daylight aerial work operations, and you'll notice there that some of these are to do with mustering and resetting of your limits after having, for example, 28 days off. You can reset your limits. There's another one there. After 5 consecutive days off, you can reset these 2 limits here above. So when CASA asks you a question in your exam, they are generally going to point you to perhaps the exact appendix number, or they will name the type of operation. So, for example, they'll say this is a multi-pilot operation that is except complex, right? Or this is a multi-pilot operation that is flight training. So in that case, you'd go and look for the flight training one, which is over here, and you'd use this appendix, which was 5A. But generally, CASA is fairly kind in that respect now. This was an area of mass confusion. Just only a couple of months ago, people had to look at 3 versions of this documentation, and the question would tell them which version, and then they'd have to go to that CAO and do all of this for 3 different versions. So CASA's got a little bit kinder. They've eliminated the older versions. They're only operating on the 2019, and they will point you in the direction of which appendix to use. Then you will go to that appendix, and I'll just show you what that looks like now. So you'd come here to the Federal Register of Legislation. You can get to this by Googling it in the CASA. Just always make sure you've got this in force green on there. So the website looks like that. There's the URL there. And just make sure you're using the current version there, right? So it's CAO 48.1, Instrument 2019. If that turns red, it means there's a new one out, and you would click View Series, and then you'd look in the series for the one that doesn't have an expiry date, which is generally always at the top. Here's your table of contents. Sometimes these are clickable, sometimes they're not. Over here is an example of an appendix in full. So what I've done is I've basically chopped out all of those numbers in my spreadsheet and then left the headings. So number 2, chopped out all of that, left number 3, chopped out all of that, etc. When I get to sections like this, I've left those little headings in so that you can see the difference. So if we go back here, you'll notice that, for example, in delayed reporting time, they are the headings. So in other words, this appendix, any operations appendix 4, it goes into detail about delayed reporting times. This one over here, it goes into detail on the limit of cumulative flight times, and that's very much to do with your aerial work, to do with your mustering, etc. Because mustering is like a peak time where all the flying has to be done within a few days to keep the cattle moving. So it's got its own special conditions. And you'll notice anywhere where there's lots of red on this spreadsheet, that type of transport, for example, medical, has its own limitations that are very specific to it. Any operations has got this section here to do with delayed reporting times. The others are fairly standard. Not the multi-pilot operations over here has a few little differences up here to do with your limits and your increases in your limits if you've got augmented crew operations. Now, one thing you're going to notice down here is these are fairly consistent across most of the appendixes, is the limit on cumulative flight time and the limits on cumulative duty time. You'll notice that they're not identical. These 3 here are identical. The basic one is different, and this, I think it's a 4B medical is different, and the 5s are different as well. But appendixes for the multi-pilot operations, appendix 2, 3, and 4, so any operations, they are consistent through these, and that's why they're in green. So again, I'll move around this spreadsheet very, very slowly. What you could do, I'll just scroll down. You can pause this at any time and take a screenshot. It is copyrighted. There's publicly information available. If you do distribute it, please just give us a bit of credit to PilotPracticeExams.com. Add that to it so people know where it came from. I'm just going to scroll across for you and then scroll up. So you've got Appendix 5, 5A and 6. And then I'll scroll down so you'd be able to screenshot those. And then very much make sure you have a copy of this table 10.1 printed. And this little snippet over here just kind of points in the direction, and it basically says, hey, go to table 10.1, pick your appendices and follow what's in the appendices. So if you then come over to Pilot Practice Exams and you go to your CPL and you go to your CLWA, or you can go to helicopter and do the CPL helicopter ones there, what you'll notice is when you come in here is we have these fatigue rules, FDP, and we've got around about 48, 50 questions in there, and you'll do 15 of them, and those questions take quite a while sometimes. You're only going to, as we said, get 3 or 4 in your exams based on, people's recent experiences, but you probably need to go through that, at least 5, 6, 10 times until you're competent with it. And you can answer those questions by referring to the details. Be warned, CASA does like to use lots of little tricks in this to make sure that you're reading and interpreting it properly. So I'm Matt from Pilot Practice Exams, and thanks for watching. Make sure you give us a like, and if you want to make sure you never miss a video from us, hit subscribe. But it's very important you give us a like just to let us know that, hey, this is the type of stuff we like, and we'll keep making more videos like this.